What's up, guys? It's Monday. We're back at the shop. Let's get a little update on what's going on here. So we took in this 97 528 5-speed manual, 180,000 mile almost car, one owner car, and it's just in unbelievable condition. We did an MPI on this car a couple weeks back, and he chose a lot of our recommendations to proceed forwards with. So we're about to start that tomorrow. All 4 front control arms, tie rods, driveline rebuild, shifter rebuild, ball joints, rear upper control arms, maybe a diff seal and diff bushings as well. It's kind of like the whole thing. And we've got to have it done by Friday, and we didn't start today. So that's going to be super fun. It's going to be a busy rest of the week on this, but it should be a nice car to work on in that it's all clean and it's all original and there's no rust on it. So shouldn't be too bad. Mike did a bunch of work on this car today, the 2000 50,000 mile carbon black. Valve cover gaskets are done, plenum's back on. We got the control arms and a shark tune in today from ECS finally. So we're ready to get those moving along here. I think he did a bunch of other stuff too. I just don't know exactly what because I was in the office all day or working on this, my 540, which we'll get to shortly. Earlier today, Rick stopped by his 2000 740IL. He had a noise when he turned on the AC compressor or turned on air conditioning, and he thought it was the compressor. We got a look in there, Mike got a look in there, and it turned out it was the AC belt tensioner and pulley. Both had a pretty substantial amount of play in them. So per his request, we replaced both the serpentine belt and AC belt tensioners and idler and tensioner pulleys. So he's got a nice, quiet, smooth running car with no noises for AC now. He also wants to do valve cover gaskets, rear exhaust hangers. One of them was sagging, maybe an O2 sensor, something else we added to that list too. I ordered all the parts today. He's coming in Thursday. We got the front curved control arms in this 36,000 mile black sapphire 08060 M5 today. Gone are the little jerks when braking. You could feel the front axle coming back. 36,000 miles, those bushings. In fact, we haven't thrown the arms out yet. I want to show him tomorrow when he picks it up. The right control arm, more than the left, is completely torn. And if you put a bolt in there, is it this one? No, that one actually looked okay. If you put a bolt in there or a screwdriver or anything and just rock it back and forth, see that big crack up there at the top? That bushing is really loose and has a bunch of play in it. And you can see where it's greased or where the grease is leaked out down there. So nice improvement there. I think he'll be happy with that, in addition to the fact that the brake and ABS warnings are gone and the EDC stuff is finally fixed. We would have put the control arms in last week when the rest of it was done, but he was out of town and couldn't pick it up till tomorrow. So those went in today. Now, huge thanks today to Ayel out in Illinois and his efforts today and his assistance today on kind of a team viewer. It's AnyDesk. He remoted in and fixed the coding issue with this car. So he left a comment on a YouTube video about 2 weeks ago now, said if the coders couldn't figure it out, get in touch with him. So the coders really couldn't figure it out. I got in touch with him, and it turns out it was a GM. I don't know if that means general module or if there's some other. Leave me another comment and let me know what the GM in there actually is. But when you hook up NCS and you go in there and it brings in like SA, FG, and GM and all those numbers, those string codes rather, there was a coding issue with the cluster. So my guess is somebody replaced it in the past. Maybe they found one with better pixels and swapped it in and just didn't get it programmed or coded right to the car. So in like a half an hour, he was able to remote in, figure out what the problem was, and solve that. And then we started talking about ZCS coding, and I asked, what is the ZCS? Because I'm a noob here and I don't even know what that means. So per my understanding, the ZCS is an early version of a VO, or a vehicle order. And on E60, E90 platform, E65 platform cars, the vehicle order is a cumulative list of all the options that the car has from factory. So if you look in the vehicle order for this car, this E60, it would say S508A PDC. And then when you program the car at the factory, or update modules, reflash modules, reset, code program modules, whatever, it looks at that list of options and programs the car accordingly to set it up and configure it to make use of those options. So the E39 has a similar thing. it's not nearly as deeply integrated or as integral to functions of the system. So I retrofit PDC over last week and the weekend. You plug everything in, you make the proper connections, and it works right out of the box. You do not have to code it to get it to work. However, when you finally get NCS working and then you try to browse for that PDC module to make coding adjustments, it's not there because the ZCS does not include that in the list of options that the car came from factory with. So today he taught me how to use a real simple, seemingly lightweight application to go in there and import the ZCS code, which is, I don't know, a 12 or 14 digit string code. And you decode that, and then it gives you a nice GUI of the options the car has. So you go and select 508A PDC, you encode it to get your new SA number with that option code now. Then you go back to NCS, you do job Schreiben or ZCS Schreiben, I believe is right in German. So it writes the new ZCS to the two modules that care, and that's the EWS security module and the IKE or the instrument cluster. Now you've written the new ZCS to the cluster, now you have to reprogram it, and that's the SG codeiron command. Generally that command writes the coding options to the module, but if you don't have a file, if it's blank, let's say, like I did today, then that means the module gets this file and says, hey, there's no data here, I don't know what I am. Well, let's go back to my ZCS and see what I'm programmed with and configure the car accordingly. So you execute those blank SG codeiron commands to the IKE and the EWS. Boom, PDC now shows up in NCS for coding. And I didn't even make any coding adjustments, but it's there if I want to. So we knocked out two things there. One, the car is properly coded for PDC. If you were to look in there, it would present completely as a PDC car from factory. And thing two, now we can actually communicate it with NCS. So again, a huge thanks to your time and effort today in helping me through that and honestly walking me through that. And I've even written up an instruction document now that in the event I need to do this again in 6 months, in a year, in 5 years, I don't have to call you again. I know exactly what to do and have really spelled it out here piece by piece, so there's no way I can screw that up. Awesome. One car not in here tonight is the O2 extremely clean carbon black 50,000 mile M5. That I am driving home today to put through the final tests. I think we still have a touch of parking brake adjustment to do to get it where I like it. And I've got to listen for the parking brake rubbing on the right rear corner when we get it up on the lift to put the belly pans back on. So when that happens tomorrow, that car should be done, ready for pickup. And we can get that one out of here so we can really focus our efforts on the 528. And then this 540 test drove today. There's one freaking little annoyance that I'm not fully happy with, and that is when you come to a nice smooth stop, and then once you get back over to the gas and there's that change of motion somewhere in the rear suspension, seemingly the rear left, there's just a touch of a little clunk. It's like something is just adjusting a fraction of a millimeter, and you can hear it. And for all the suspension work we've done on this car, that's not acceptable for me. I want that to be perfectly quiet and silent and how it should be. So we're gonna have to get it up on the lift tomorrow and pretty much just put a wrench on every bolt and see if it's something. I don't think it's something we did. We sublet the car for rear control arm bushings, and I'm not absolving myself of responsibility. I take full responsibility for the work that my sublets do, but I'm guessing that something there just isn't quite torqued to spec. So we'll figure out what it is. If it needs to be torqued at right height, we will. If not, we'll look up the spec and crank it down. So when that's done, finally this guy can get his car back, and we'll have that out of here and space for more that are outside, like that 750. That's got to get back in here. The parts he's sending us for the suspension are due tomorrow. So we'll get that done. But in the meantime, I'm feeling a grilled cheese tonight. It's almost 9 o'clock. I'm going to get out of here, go home and make that, relax a little bit, get a much needed shower in, and I'll talk to you guys tonight. Hey, made it back. M5 drives absolutely fantastically. It's a pleasure to drive this car. Noticed something on the way home. I had to get gas, and we're missing a little piece here. And my question is, how the hell do you lose? Boy, it's dark. Let's turn on the extra light. How do you lose this little piece? I don't know if you can buy it separately. I might have one somewhere at the shop. But there is supposed to be a small little green holder here. So when you take off the fuel cap thing, you're supposed to stick it right here, right? So without that there, you're forced to leave it hang against the perfect carbon black paint? Absolutely not. So we're gonna have to come up with something there. I'm surprised he didn't mention that, but I think this is his first E39, so he probably didn't know. So he found that. I plugged my blue bus in just to have something to listen to on the way home. And this is an O2, so it doesn't have digital DSP, it's analog DSP. And the problem there is it sounds like absolute shit. There's a short to ground or whatever that problem is, where you get this high pitched noise, like 18,000 hertz noise that is variable with RPM. And the higher RPM, the higher pitched it goes, around 5,000. I can't hear it anymore. So that's probably about 18,000 hertz. But it probably starts at like 12,000 hertz or something like that. So I did two things. Thing number one is I took out this adapter from the old Dynavan or Eonin, whatever bullshit, cheap Chinese aftermarket eBay crap hole system the car had. I took this out, which just removes some nearby interference. And two, the more important thing here is I put a digital DSP cable in. You can do that on any 839, 02 or 03. They didn't come with them, but it's a real easy plug and play type ad. And now the noise is completely gone. So a little PSA, if you have any of that, even if you don't, if your analog DSP works fine, get rid of it. It's crap. Go back to digital DSP. Why they changed that in 01 or 02, I will never understand. Seems to be a function of the BM53 radio. So other than that, I don't think there's any issues. Drivability, sound performance is all fantastic. This car feels amazing. 50,000 miles on an 02 and just glass smooth paint. Absolute pleasure to drive. So we're going to wrap up today here. Tomorrow's Tuesday already. Talk to you guys then. Good night.